And this is for consideration of an English Hills multifamily development, preliminary area site plan, as well as a rezone of a small portion of the overall site located at 1474 Mile Road Northwest. In terms of format, we're going to start out the meeting by providing, well, first we'll take public comment, and then at that point, general public comment on non-agenda items. And then we'll move into a presentation by the developer. And after that presentation, we'll open the public hearing, take public comment. And then after that, Scott Connors, our city engineer, will provide his comments from the engineering standpoint. And then Tricia Anderson, the planning director, will provide a planning perspective on the project. And after that, there will be deliberation amongst the commissioners on the action that's before us this evening. So with that, is there anyone here in the building or online or on the telephone that wants to offer comment on a non-agenda item, not on this particular project?
If you're online, you can raise your hand.
Okay. Seeing no comment under general public comment, we'll move into the applicant presentation. Tricia, if you would please introduce the applicant.
Yeah, so tonight we have Mark Avis with Redhawk Multifamily, who is proposing the 552 unit multifamily apartment complex on the property that we know of as the English Hills Golf Course, located at 1200 4 Mile Road Northwest. And we're also talking about the rezone at 1470 4 Mile Road Northwest. So, Mark, I'll go ahead and.
So I'm Kim Sorrell. This feels kind of awkward. Hello, everybody. I own English Hills, and I bought it with my family in 1983. It's a little 9-hole golf course with a little shack on the hill. Anybody who remembers that back then? And we've developed it over the years into much more than that, and it's been great. It's been a great ride for us. I'm the only one of us left that is part of the golf course, part of English Hills. And life has changed for me, and I'm really excited about having a new phase of life. I lost my husband about 12 years ago, and life changed for me dramatically then. And I spent a lot of time in Haiti. I do a lot of work outside the country, helping people, and I really like to do more of that. But I'm running a business, and that takes a minute or two to do. And so, in looking at selling the land, just even the idea of it and what could go on the land, of course, you know, there's some history in that, right, with Pulte and whatever. But lately, the offers that have been coming in the last 5 years or so, none of them really seem like a good fit. And none of the developers really were the right person to develop the land. It just didn't ever feel right. And then Mark came along. And the development is beautiful. And the thing I've been more impressed with probably than anything is how he wants input. He wants to please the neighbors. He wants to make sure everybody's happy. He wants to make sure that it's a project that enhances people's lives, enhances property values, that it's something to be proud of. And he truly cares, even from, you know, he lives near Chicago or in Chicago, but he cares about Walker. And he truly does. And so I'm excited about the prospects of this project. I think it's going to be a fantastic thing for the city of Walker, a fantastic thing for people in our area of Grand Rapids. And so I'm really excited for him to share.
Hello. Is it on or I'm good?
Is the red light on the microphone?
No.
You can go ahead and hit that button. Yep.
There we go.
Yep.
Okay. My name is Mark Avis, principal with Redhawk Multifamily. And we're doing this project with our joint partner, Redevelopment. That we're actually working on 2 other developments with one in Lansing and one in Binghamton. So this is our 3rd project that we're working on together. To start off on the slideshow, there'll be a brief slideshow. But as Kim said, we've been working on this project for almost 9 months at this point. We feel like we did our homework. When we got into the project, the first thing we did was invest a lot of time and energy. We surveyed the entire project. We did a topography on the entire project, the entire land, excuse me. You know, we located all the existing wetlands so we can preserve them. We located and preserved most of the existing trees on the property, and we surveyed them. We did extensive soil borings on the project already, so we knew where the soils were, and we knew that this plan was buildable, and the buildings were set in the right areas. We studied and followed the Walker comprehensive plan for the project. The overall density is less than 4 units to the acre, which is allowable per the current future land use plan of Walker. We use smart clustering, which we do in a lot of our projects. Smart clustering enables open space. It enables a nice non-grid site plan and a lot of outside amenities. We provided abundant walking paths and amenities for our residents. Open space, especially in the post-COVID era, is a phenomenal amenity they have, and luckily we have this with this property. The next slide, I'm going to go, it's a big site, so I can go on parcels of the site and explain the different areas of it. So the northern section of the project is 24 total buildings. These are small 8-unit buildings. They're all 2-story. It totals 194 units. They all have attached garages, and they all have their own private entrances. If you pull in your garage, you actually enter into your own apartment. These are quote unquote the old big house concepts that people call them. They look like single family homes, but they're actually 8 apartments. You can go to the next slide, please. This is a sample elevation of what these buildings look like. We call these 4-sided buildings, and what they mean by 4-sided buildings, there's really no front or back or sides. They're all quality materials on all 4 sides. And we're also committed to using only quality materials on all our buildings. So no vinyl siding whatsoever on any of these buildings. Next slide, please. So the southern portion then is a total of 18 buildings. Again, we consider these small multifamily buildings. There are only 20 units in each building. Again, the 3-story is a total of 360 apartments. Some have attached garages, but they all have private entrances. Next slide, please. It's a sample elevation of what these buildings look like. What's unique about these buildings, number one, they look like a typical townhome community, and we think these complement the surrounding area and both buildings complement Walker and the architecture that's around these buildings. They're low profile, again, 2-story buildings. These buildings, even if you live upstairs, what's unique about them is you actually enter into your own staircase. So if you live upstairs, you have your own private entrance door, you're entering in your own private staircase and going into your own private unit. Same thing on the first floor units. So all these units on the project, every single apartment has their own private entrance. Next slide. So overall, approximately 70% of the project remains untouched, the land. We consider that current open space. Their overall unit mix is approximately 50% 1-bedrooms, 40% 2-bedrooms, and 10% 3-bedrooms. We do have some studios, but I call those 1-bedrooms. Average unit size is approximately 1,000 square feet. Of course, the project is going to generate traffic, but we consider the traffic will be much less than what could be built on the property. Much less that these are all 2- and 3-bedroom apartments, and much less, greatly much less, that these are all 3- and 4-bedroom single-family homes, which also could be built on the property. So the current unit mix will generate traffic, but substantially much less traffic than what could be built on the property. Next slide, please. So middle area, we see the one orange building, that's the community clubhouse, the pool, the dog parks in this area, and a community garden is in this area. And that's in the center of the property. Next slide. So in terms of some of the amenities that this the project will have, typical pool. These are slides from some of our prior projects. Typical heated pool. Next slide. Typical clubhouse, and we call these clubhouses now. They're not really leasing centers anymore. These are open 24/7 to the residents. They can rent it out for a party. This is where residents can go in and enjoy throughout the day, have gatherings. They're really not leasing centers anymore. This is a typical clubhouse you would see if you belong to a private club down in Florida, etc. Next slide, please. Typical inside of the apartments: granite countertops, wood cabinets, wood floors, stainless steel appliances. Backsplash. Next slide. Large fitness room in the clubhouse. And again, the residents have a fob key system where they can access it when they want to use it, which is also nice. So they can gain access to this at 9 o'clock at night or at 5 in the morning. It's secure and it's for the residents. Next slide. We like doing dog parks everywhere. We like doing fancy dog parks. It's a phenomenal amenity. At our communities that we do, approximately about 30 or 40% of our residents have dogs, if not one or two. Next slide. The clubhouse will also have private meeting spaces where people can actually reserve that for an hour or two and hold a meeting versus having one at Starbucks, which many people do. And again, this is stuff we have always done, but at this point, with post-COVID life, it's even more important that these amenities are there for the residents. Next slide. We do secure package rooms and mail rooms. The mail and the packages are delivered to the clubhouse. How they get their packages, UPS, Amazon, etc., actually delivers the package into one of the packages. You get a notification on your phone that you have a package. They'll tell you the number of the package and the code. And again, you can access this 24/7 to get your packages. I call it Amazon phobia, like where's my package? And there's no more of that. It's all put into these secure package rooms. Next slide, please. So as I kind of go through the site at this point, the main entrance will continue to be where it is located right now, off of 4 Mile Road. The secondary access is proposed on the western side of the property. Next slide. Northridge Drive that is coming down from 4 Mile Road, and then is it set up to align with the future expansion that would go over to Bristol Avenue. I think staff will talk about it, but that's all part of the future comp plan of Walker, and we designed the site to accommodate that. So again, it aligns with Bristol, and that's Northridge Drive will remain a public road. Next slide. In terms of the entranceway, we're proposing a monument sign that would be within our own median. It'll be in between the in and out traffic, but it'll be basically proposed at that entranceway right there. Next slide. One of the benefits to the community, to the public, we talked with the city of Walker, and we are proposing to donate the portion of land that is in the red to the city of Walker so they can expand the current existing park. So that's where that's located. And it also helps clear up some nuances of some gaps in the land that's there, but that's a nuance of it. But anyways, we're donating land to the public. Next slide, please. Which I think, as Kim said, we've held over 6 different gatherings at English Hills. We've sent out notices on our own to everyone that's lived around the property. We did this in 2 different sets. We did one last week and we did one about 3 months ago. The first one 3 months ago, we got a lot of input suggestions. I believe we accommodated and inputted all those comments and suggestions we got in. And the last week was a follow-up in terms of where we are and how we accommodated them. We basically increased the buffer areas. We moved some things around. And up to this point, make a point of this is that besides these open meetings, every single person had my cell phone. Every single person had my email address. In the package, I shared a bunch of emails that we received from people. I think generally people are extremely happy with what's being proposed. And the only comments I've gotten is, well, the project should never be developed, and it should remain vacant. And to my point, Kim has a right to sell her land. We have a right to come in and develop something that meets the City of Walker's comp plan, the future land use plan. And we hope this is something that everyone will be proud of. And this is something, I get emotional that I believe this is something that I'll be proud of for the rest of my life. I love this project. And I think this is something that other cities will look at and study, and how do we come up with this plan, and how do we do the smart clustering and remain all this open space. This is a project that I call a statement project that I think we'll all be proud of for a long time. Next slide. In terms of the northeast portion of the project, I go on 3 different quadrants. This is the northeast portion of the project. What we did, we basically preserved all the trees along the property line will be preserved. We added additional trees in the areas that there are no trees to create a landscape buffer. That was one of the things that the neighbors requested. And they wanted a landscape buffer versus a fence. So we added the trees to complete the landscape buffer in that area. The closest building, and most of them are much farther away, but the very closest building is literally 300 feet from the property line. And we kept increasing that buffer as we went from 4 different stages of the site plan. Next slide, please. And this is the southeast portion of the project. Pretty much nothing is being touched in this area. All the trees are remain the same. And by the way, the light blue areas are existing wetlands or ponds on the project, and the dark blues are proposed areas that would be new ponds or detention areas. So this entire area basically remains as is, besides the land given to the city. The tree buffer, the green tree line there that you see in front of the homes, I just got one last request from those 6 homes there. They'd like me to pull the hedges off a little bit and not have a wall of trees, kind of spread it out so it looks more foresty. And I did say I would accommodate that, just for the record. So I just got that last comment yesterday. And I think, again, we've been very accommodating to, I think, virtually every comment or question or concern I've gotten from any resident or neighbor. Next slide, please. So this is the northwest portion of the project. Again, these are where the 8-unit buildings are. There's a lot of existing trees, and the crossed out areas are also wetland areas. They're just not ponds. It all remains the same. But what's important on this piece of property that we're committed to doing to the families that are up to the western side of it is there is a 50 feet dispute line between what is English Hills owns and what it does the neighbors own. And you can kind of see it hashed out a little bit to the west of the road. But I've committed to, our surveyors believe we own it. Their land policies show that they might own it, but we are going to, as part of the plat, fix it and give that 50 feet to those homeowners permanently, so there's no more title disputes as part of our plan. So that was their one request that we would accommodate, and we are committed to accommodating that as well. Next slide, please. In terms of the intersection with the English Hills condominiums and townhomes, the request is really to study this intersection and make sure that the access in and out is done in a smart and controlled fashion. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this is the intersection we're talking about. Basically, as you go right, you go into the English Hills apartment community, and to the left are the condos and townhomes. The intersection we set up, there'll be a stoplight for our residents, a stop sign for our residents going out. They also have a stop sign. What's important about the traffic configuration is for people that are turning into Northridge Drive, they're able to freely turn left into their community. And the stop sign system is set up where they can also safely exit out into the traffic to get up to 4 Mile Road. So that's that configuration. We also talked about, eventually we'll do a matching monument sign there that will match the main monument sign up front. Next slide, please. So not that it's really something you're talking about, but I just want to, we're talking about the site plan and how does this fit in with the walker and the comprehensive plan. But I do want to talk about demand and is there a need? In general, and I talk about this in all the communities that we're developing, we look where there's need. We are in a business. The demand for multifamily renter by choice is increasing every single year since the Great Recession. Post-COVID, renters are seeking new communities with all these modern amenities, and they want open space. And that is something that has always been there, but it's more prevalent now. In Walker, in general, the current housing stock in this area, it's nice, but it's old, it's dated. People are looking for these type of amenities, the type of amenities that is shown in the slideshow. Next slide, please. Talk about Grand Rapids having a housing crisis. There needs to be more housing built and different types of housing. We believe we're supplying something that it's not seen right now in Walker. It's really not seen in if you look at all Grand Rapids, which I know well, we feel this will be a special community and satisfying a need that is really not out there right now. Next slide, please. In terms of in terms of apartments and what is a healthy market, an overall 6% vacancy rate is a healthy market. And that means supply and demand are in sync. Presently, we're below 6%, and the projections, this is from CoStar, is by 2024, the vacancy level in Grand Rapids is expected to be 2%, and they have all the data, starts, etc. So there is a crisis. Doesn't mean it's something that why you should approve a project. You should approve it based on the merits of the project, the design of the project, the use of it. But there is a need, and we're satisfying that need. Next slide, please. How does this PUD or our plan or PUD affect the city of Walker, and what does something like this do? There are studies out there that shows any type of new community built next to existing homes or communities is good. It shows that area is vibrant. It adds life. It actually appreciates homes. Doing a project in Rochester, Minnesota, building next to $1 million homes, they actually wrote letters supporting our project, so they knew that it was actually a good project, and it shows that the area is strong and it's healthy. Besides that, from the home builders did a study on what does building homes and apartments do for our community. But every 100 homes, besides creating construction jobs, but every 100 homes is proven that actually creates 44 permanent jobs. Homes that are not there right now will create jobs with retail businesses, etc. So overall, this development should create over 200 permanent jobs for the city of Walker. And most importantly, they'll be there to support local businesses, banks, retail, etc., which is also good for the health of the community. Next slide, please. Without going to specific projects, we're experienced developers. I've been doing this for 15, 20 years. My partner's been doing it for 15, 20 years. And besides building quality apartment communities, what this, my point is that we have the capability to develop the project. This will be financed as one project, one loan, one project. It will be built over 2 to 3 years, but we technically call that one phase. So sometimes communities get worried about, I can build 5 homes and then wait 2 years. We know there's a need. We know there's financing available to us, and we will be developing this as one phase. Next slide, please. So recap, how does the proposal fit in with, besides the future land use of Walker, what about Walker's 2020 goals? Again, I feel like we did our homework. The main 4 things I picked up in the comprehensive plan is to provide safe, attractive, and vibrant neighborhoods that can accommodate residents of all stages of life. Allow for creativity, so we can do retained open space where envisioned by the planner. Walker wants to continually to outreach and attract innovative companies. And I'll talk about that a little bit on the next slide. This ensures a diverse and resilient economic base. And the last thing, to provide new parks and recreational areas within developments or retrofit existing developments. Next slide, please. So how does the proposed PUD and our site plan, satisfy a lot of those goals of Walker? The community will appeal to a diverse population base. The unit mix and the style of these homes will attract millennials, empty nesters, young families, and especially empty nesters. What that creates is a circle of life. If we're attracting young people into the community, they rent, eventually get married, they might have a couple children. Now they're in Walker. They'll buy a home in Walker, live out their life, and then hope they sell their home and come back and rent. A lot of people we talk to, a lot of homeowners, they're attracted, and we believe a lot of them want to be in our residents as they go through that circle of life. Overall, these are low density buildings, and we feel these complement the area. We could have gone 3-story, we could have gone more dense, we could have done differently, but we started off, and we've done 3-story buildings, but we felt these buildings that we're proposing fit with the area and they complement the area. Again, the residents will support the retail corridor, its local businesses and restaurants. New multifamily housing with these amenities. We're talking about going back to innovative companies, attracting new companies. Communities like this attract companies. They see their employees living at these communities. It helps them attract new employees. This is generally, these modern communities is what the residents are looking for, and a lot of these companies are looking for these things. We're doing a project in Bloomington, Indiana, not student, but Cook Medical, one of the largest employers of Indiana, wrote a letter supporting our community because they knew that their residents wanted this community. And we feel the same thing here in Walker, that this community will help attract these innovative companies and these millennials. Again, lots of open space in the community. And again, we are donating a portion of the community to the park. It was not asked that we did this, but we offered it from the very start. And the next slide is just the general site plan. So thank you for your time. I think hopefully that was a good general overview. And why hopefully you support this, and it's something that we're very excited about. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we have 7 members of the planning commission that are in the room here, and we have 2 that are participating online. I'd like to give an opportunity to the commissioners if you have any questions or comments for the applicant with regard to this project. Anybody, any questions?
Good question. On average, it should be about 1,000 square feet. And the rents, we go by $1.50 rents. So on average, $1,400, $1,500 a month in that range. The existing product right now is approximately $1.20, per square foot. So just by being new with all the amenities, that's pretty close to the free. So in that range. And when you and those rents include if you have a garage, that would be part of it.
As you were going through and describing that project, the 8-unit buildings, there's on the northwest portion of the site, there's as many as 5 of them along the north side of the northernmost drive. And from the picture of the exterior that you showed us and described, it's not real clear how the parking, whether that parking is parking spaces underneath the units.
So you can go, if you can go back to the slide, I can kind of explain it. And as we get into the final engineering, it'll be they'll be able to scale better, but there's garages on the fronts and there's also garages on the sides of the buildings. So basically, you know, you're in the middle courtyards, there's actually a drive there that people are pulling into their own garages.
Okay.
Does that make sense? If you pulls it up, I think you'll kind of see it.
We're looking for the elevation picture, this?
Next other one, we're talking about the 8 units. So the front of the units will probably have, there's 8 units. So you have 4 garages in the front, and then the sides each will have 2 garages on the sides. So what you're seeing in between the buildings are basically a drive into those people that will pull into their own garages. It's all at grade, not below. So if you're pulling into that garage on the side, you're basically pulling your garage, you're walking into your unit, whether it's upstairs or on the same level. So they're all private.
Okay, so as you describe it, then there will be living area on the first floor.
Yeah.
As well as garages on 3 of the 4 sides.
Yes.
Okay.
It's designed to look like a single family home. That's what they call it, I guess. So some on your first floor, you usually have this, of the 8, you might have 2 or 3 apartments that are actually just on the first floor. Because a lot of the space is being taken by garages, obviously. And the other ones, you're walking upstairs when you park in your garage and they're upstairs.
Good. Thank you.
But overall, we talk about accessibility, half the units are all basically on the first level if you look at it as a community as a whole. So that's why we talk about a lot of empty nesters.
Sure. On the northwest corner, on the road out, there's a little bit of land there that's just empty. Is there plans for that?
No. I think you're talking about up in the corner there.
Yeah, she just passed it, so.
No, we pretty much promised different buffers to the different neighbors. So, we left that. I think we originally had a building there, actually. We took it off. And we actually did have a couple of buildings from our initial plan. We have buildings going out into that area. So, but yeah, we took them off.
Okay, thanks.
Well, if there's no other questions at this point for the applicant, thank you very much for the presentation. At this point,
So I might bring it up so again, the light blue are existing ponds that are on the property. We're not touching those. We're not impacting them. The dark blue, again, are detention facilities that we would be building. And again, the neighbors talk about those. Will they be irrigated? We put fountains in. The answer is yes, in case that gets brought up that later in the presentation. So, thank you.
This is a public hearing this evening, so we could have a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second. Motion by Tyler, supported by Joe to open the public hearing. Tricia, could you call roll, please?
Terry,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yep.
Steve,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Pat.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing, the motion passed, the public hearing is open. We're going to initially take comments from those that are in the audience within City Hall first. In the event that there's somebody else outside that wants to come in, you can make your comment and then make that your seating place available for another individual. So anybody coming to offer comment, 3 minutes. It's going to be limited to a 3-minute time period for the comment. We'd ask that you come forward, give your name and address, and what your comment would be.
Thank you so much for the presentation. My question has to do, I am Marie Church and I live at 3375 English Hills Drive. And I must say that I am really impressed with some of the things I've seen tonight. But one of the questions I have has to do with parking in relation to the garages. I assume these are 2-car garages or 1-car garages? They're one. Okay. So is there space elsewhere in the development where if for a temporary period, there's an extra car for these units? Do they have places for guests to go, or are they going to be parking along the roads?
I can answer for, so there's parking requirements that are required from the city of Walker. So not only will we adhere to what's required on a per unit basis, we will be beyond that actually.
Okay.
So we try to be between 1.8 and 2.0 parking spaces per unit.
Yeah.
And we don't go by unit, like, that means everything. So whether it's 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, on average, will be above what the city of Walker requires. So extra spaces, et cetera.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room here who'd like to offer comment? Thank you.
I'm nervous, but I don't care. My name is Renee Curtis. I live at 3313 Ipswich Drive Northwest. Great neighborhood. Last week at his meeting, he was talking about 532 units. Today it's up to 552. Some of this is objective, some of this is objective. Let's see. He mentioned the park is going to be enlarged. Great. That is used a lot. Okay, over 75 of the community will be open space. Is that the land that hasn't been sold yet, that's going to go out to the road will go out to Bristol? Or is that the existing property? Because they're visually, it doesn't look like 75% of property is open. Subjective, objective, I'm just saying. Low density buildings, when he first started, the first meeting and then the second meeting, they were studio 1 and 2 bedrooms. Now it's gone to 3 bedrooms. And if it's low density, why are they requesting going to a higher density? Let's see. 4 units to the acre. That was with the 532 units. I don't know what it'll be crammed into for more. Proposed low density 2-story buildings. Now they're talking 3-story buildings. I mean, with the parking underneath and then higher and higher. Okay, and at the last meeting, he did say, which I requested, could be done, is on Ipswich, behind all of our houses, there is one continuous chain link fence. A lot of neighbors use that as the third side of their backyard fence. Also, people are going to be having their dogs. That'll keep them out of our property. Because it happens. I'm very glad that he wants to keep trees. Detention ponds. I know I've had one neighbor say that since the golf course was installed, that there was a lot of water coming into backyards, so that's a good idea.
That's 3 minutes, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being able to talk about the gas gun for a couple minutes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Am I able to just respond for clarification?
Why don't we wait until we've had all the comments, and then you'd be able to provide
It's worth.
clarification.
Perfect, thank you.
Is there anything else?
I'm Kim Ross. I live at 3363 English Hills Drive. And I love the concept of what you're doing. I've been to a couple of meetings and I do like what I see. My only question is, because I have lived in Walker for many years, I lived at Hampton Lakes for about 6 years. And with the pond that they had, we had a definite problem with geese. And so with all the retention ponds that I'm seeing in the pictures, I don't want to be having to chase geese off my walkway when I'm out and about, which I have to do at Hampton quite often, even trying to get in and out. And also, geese do their thing, and there's lots of souvenirs. And it's a mess. So I'm wondering what will be done if we were looking at installing, mechanical swans to keep the geese away, so that we don't have that problem entering into our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that wish to come forward? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Haley Jan. I live at 1300 Cornwall Road Northwest. I was following on Zoom, but it was really echoey, so I decided to just show up. So I just had a question. I had heard on the phone call portion that you were talking about how you had held open meetings and kind of been dialoguing with residents and everything. And I definitely share a property line with the project. And this was the first I had heard about any of that. I hadn't heard about any meetings before, so I was wondering how you contacted people for that and incorporating those suggestions, and if there's still any opportunity for that kind of dialogue. I know I did see in the initial plans that were posted versus the current one, it went from like a 50-foot setback from the property line that I share with you to 100 feet for the closest building. So I certainly appreciate that, things like that are being incorporated. My main question is currently between the English Hills parking lot and my home, there's a pretty big line of large old pine trees, which are going to be, and they're on the English Hills property, but they're going to be removed because the buildings are going to overlap where that line of pine trees is now. And so I guess I just had questions about, kind of privacy, and if there were options for, like you had mentioned, some other residents who worked on options for like landscape screening, that kind of thing. So those are mainly my questions, and just wondering if it was kind of too late to have those conversations because I wasn't aware of the previous meetings. Anyway.
Thank you.
For letting us be here. And hi again. My name is Kathleen Saltesiak, and I'm at 3381 English Hills Drive. We're in the 18th hole, and it's been a nice 10 years that I've lived there. One of the, concerns I have from Walker City anyway is, and this is way past, is like the development of the property itself. And with all the congestion in the 2040 planning, we talked about the congestion on Alpine, what we do about that. We've now had all of the businesses that are, encroaching from the other side all the way to Bristol. So there was discussion about what do we do with all of this. My comment was, do you plan on developing every single piece of land, or is there an opportunity for some kind of a nature preserve type thing? So we're past the point, I guess, of seeing if there's a land conservancy that would, help us develop the property. I'm really glad to see that Mark and his company and Kim have been concerned for all the wetlands, and that there will be some of those that are safe. And I know they did the soil tests. There's some things about the trees. I haven't seen anything about the animals that we see on the property. The frogs started singing again a couple days ago for spring. It's beautiful to sit out there and listen to them. So there are some, animals, amphibians, whatever, that are out there. One of the things I know that my neighbors too will miss is all the deer that run in the property. And we were able to have the bear there. I have scratch marks in my tree to prove it, and no more birdhouses. So at this point, I guess I'm looking at the fact is that, what can we say? Instead of the 9 deer, I anticipate that with where we live on the 18th hole going down to the 20 units and the 8 units, I should be seeing about 424, that's 424 units. I should be seeing 424 cars, you know, pass the property, pass, you know, our condo. More probably if there's, you know, 2 people to a household, that type of thing. I noticed also that the Northridge, we had set up a circle, whatever, a roundabout in there. And at the 2040 planning meeting, the artists and everybody, it's, you know, they were saying too, we could do some things so people don't just run right through there. And I was told that we were told that, I guess the planning committee wanted to take the roundabout out. And it just seems very strange to have this major thoroughfare right in the middle of a condo, of an apartment complex.
That would be time, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you could stay with Bristol Road in the Northridge coming over from Bristol, you could stagger it so people don't use this as a shortcut, that'd be great.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that wants to take part? Okay, Jason, do we have anybody on the line that would wish to speak?
Yes. I only see one so far. If there's anyone on there that wants to speak, raise your hand. I'm going to start with Ray. You can talk now.
Good evening. This is Ray Torrin. I live at 3303 Ipswich. I'm actually Renee in the audience's neighbor. I just had a question about the layout, because on the websites or the city's website, it showed a retention pond right behind mine and Renee's house. The image today didn't, until you showed the zoom in picture. So I'm wondering if you could show that or clarify, is there a pond planned for that area or not? And that's my only comments or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Next is someone with the name of DH. You can talk now. Okay, now you can talk.
The mute's on.
DH, it appears that you need to unmute yourself.
How's that? Still working?
Yeah.
First time ever for me here, so. Doug Heisman, 1414 Road, if you didn't get that. The question I have, or the comment, is regards to the disputed property on Bristol Avenue. Just want to make clarification before.
DH, we can no longer hear you.
And I guess for the time being, I'd prefer that it's referred to as disputed property, not one person giving it to another yet. So, but it is time to get it cleared up. For the most part, it's useless land anyway. It's just a matter of getting it cleared up. But I'd like to know where that line's going to be, so that we can all understand it, all 3 parties, them, us, and the city of Walker. And then once we determine that line, I'd like to get clarification to what Walker City requires by code or past practice for green space that a developer needs to leave along existing residential properties. Because that's a little fuzzy gray on that end of the property too. So if we can, let's get some stakes in the ground out there so we all know exactly where we're at.
Could you give us your name and address, please?
My name is Doug Heispa. I actually live at 1414 4 Mile Road. But my aunts and mother still live on Bristol.
Thank you very much. Are there any other people online that would like to comment?
Yeah, next is, I'm sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce your last name, is Jay Naraki. You can talk now.
Hi, this is Joe Naraki. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Again, Joe Naraki is my name. I live at 1123 English Ridge Court. Want to clarify you got that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I had actually attended some of Mark's previous meetings. I know we also had a group of our board of directors correspond with the city of Walker. I'm an interested resident. I live close by. There's a couple things here I just want to address. Looking at the site plan, specifically prepared by Wolverine Surveyors, and the sheet number is C3.0. There's a couple things that I want to just bring to light. I don't need an answer on it tonight, but development, of course, is at this level is always proposing what the end product's going to look like and how beautiful this should look in 3 years. My comments are associated with how is the developer going to control stormwater, dust pollution, construction traffic ingress, construction traffic egress, construction time frame to build the facilities and the roads. And then the bigger picture is what's happening with the traffic impact study that was provided. What's really happening out at 4 Mile in this existing intersection where Cordis is going to be called to the south now. Why, I don't even, what's the name of the future road extension there again?
That would be Northridge.
Thank you. So that Northridge is a hypothetical extension for right now, it sounds like, to Bristol. So, and again, I'm not looking for an answer on this tonight. I just want to make sure it gets properly addressed, because we're the ones that are east or downstream of the winds and some of the stormwater issues. And the other thing I want to bring up is, what does this mean, alternate drive location? We don't want to see that driveway get any closer to English Hills Drive Northwest, because there is an existing wetland there. Okay, so those are my comments and my questions that I would like the planning director and the city engineers to work through. And of course, with our board of directors, it would be nice to get some answers to those questions of mine, okay? And I will stand down. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Joe.
I don't see any other hands raised. Once again, if you want to talk on the lower part of your Zoom, you can raise your virtual hand. I'm not seeing any more.
All right. Yes, Jason.
You do have one letter to us from Renee Shaw in opposition to the project that's triggered the indirect.
Okay. And just to clarify, Jason's indicated that there was a email that was sent in by Renee Shaw, and that all of the commissioners have been provided that and are aware of the comments and concerns that she expressed. Okay, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Tyler, supported by Jason. close the public hearing. Tricia, if you go through the roll call, please.
Terry,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Jason,
Yeah.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing is closed. So at this point in time, as I mentioned earlier, Scott Connors, the city engineer, will provide his analysis of the project.
So just a reminder that we're looking at preliminary area site plan. So this is a very detailed plan set. So as you go through that for the planning commissioners, there's lots of things to look at, lots of things to point at. I saw the same kinds of things. But at this stage, I didn't go through and write a 3-page memo with all the details. So I know Tom, for example, probably saw the stop sign configuration there for Northridge and this is some of the stuff like that. Don't worry, we'll work through that stuff later. I think at this point, we're going to be a little bit more high level. And that's certainly what our comments are. So the main road that goes through this development would be consistent with the details for Northridge Drive, which we see further west. This would be another extension of that Northridge Drive. It's certainly part of our master plan, and it's been precise platted here since 2009. And if you remember, the precise plat is kind of where you burn the impression in the ground of this road so that when a developer does come through, we know that we can make that connection. It doesn't mean that we're going to follow that path exactly, but it means that, at either side of their property, we're going to make sure the connection is made. And in between those 2 points, we can be a little bit flexible about how so that's the good part. With the rest of the development, all the roads will be private. So as you look at parking along the road and setbacks and all those kinds of things, don't worry, those are all private. And there's a lot of flexibility built in there with those being private. So that's good. Again, the precise plat would have to be amended if we were to move past the preliminary site plan. I think that would be a very easy process to take on during the final area site plan review. That's probably the best time for that. If we were to try to do that now, we might miss the mark because there's going to be changes that happen after today to the set of plans. And I think we want to wait till they're a little closer. The project would be served by public water and public sewer. That's obviously a big deal for an apartment complex. You may remember that the new water tank that was built on 4 Mile Road really increased the pressure in this area to allow development like this. There was a time where in this area it was a little bit scary. If you turned on one fire hydrant, you probably couldn't turn on a second hydrant because the pressure was so bad. But we've gotten that taken care of. And then the cost for that has been split up among all the properties that are north of the highway in what we call the North Walker High Pressure District. So that would have to be worked out within a development agreement, how that's recouped, and the city managers are working on that. Also, the sanitary sewer that's downstream from this facility is a little bit undersized, and specifically in regards to the pump station that is on the east side of Alpine Avenue. It's the Kingsbury pump station. And we've known for quite some time that if this golf course was going to turn into any kind of development, that pump station wouldn't be able to handle the flow. The good news is that we've known for a long time. And so the pump station has actually been redesigned already. It's been sitting on a shelf. I think this development looks as real as any we've ever seen here. So we have worked with Grand Rapids and said this is the time, let's get that done. So they are proceeding with finalizing those plans for today's specifications and then getting that out to bid. But what ultimately that's going to require is some participation from this developer because it doesn't take a lot of capacity in a pump station to handle a golf course. That's pretty low flow compared to apartments. So it really requires about a 50% increase in capacity. And that number will then again be negotiated through the manager's office as part of the development agreement. The development agreement will also include a few other things. You heard about park space. There's a small area in the south part of the development that they would turn over to the city that helps clean up some boundaries there with the park that haven't been real clean in the past. There's technically been a little triangle of property that was private that people had to drive across to get into the park. And so this will be a nice way to get that cleaned up and a lot of other little details like that. One of the concerns we have is maintaining access to the condos during construction. That's going to be a very difficult task. I think one way we could do that is to start to look towards having the construction access come from the driveway to the west. I think that would be a very clean way to to get in. Oftentimes with a development like this, they may want to start building a few apartments before the main public road is done too. And what we try to do is protect that public road as much as possible until it's completely done to keep construction traffic off it. So I think that's a great way to do that too, is to bring the construction traffic in from that other direction. They can get started with some buildings if they want. But careful inspection and coordination is going to be needed because there are a lot of condos in there. And if you think about how many trips per day are generated from an apartment or a condo, you know, you get into the 7 trips per day neighborhood. And if you multiply that out, that's a lot of people that need to get in and out. So again, very important to us that we make sure we coordinate that, and we'll have to work through that if this moves forward. We mentioned also there's a lot of detail in the plans. What we'll try to do moving forward is to get all of that detail shown on what we call plan and profile sheets. They're the detailed engineering drawings. We don't need to burden you guys with that the next time around. The whole plan set could maybe be 4 or 5 pages. It doesn't really need to be 20 or 30 where you start to look at sanitary sewer inverts and how the water main is going to be moved and all that. We'll work through all of that stuff in advance and at the staff level. And I think that'll help ease the burden on you a little bit as well. We have not reviewed the stormwater drainage in detail. That's pretty common at this stage. You know, we kind of look at it and say, does it seem reasonable? Yes, it seems reasonable. One of the good things about this development is that there's a lot of open space being maintained. I think all of the wetlands and all the existing ponds are being maintained, and then they're adding additional detention ponds. So that provides pre-treatment to protect the sensitive environmental areas that are out there already. So I think that's really going to be a big help. And I know from all the time I've spent out here over the years, there is a lot of wildlife, and I think preserving that and keeping that environmental area intact is going to be really helpful for a lot of things that neighbors out here like to watch. So that will be helpful. There is a traffic impact study that I believe was in your packet. That was dated, I believe, December 23rd of 2020. We have provided written feedback. That is a coordinated effort between us, an independent consultant that we hire, Kent County Road Commission, and MDOT. We're all involved in this because this the impact here spreads far and wide. So they have updated their traffic study, and it was received, I don't know if it was Friday or Monday this week, but just in the last few days. We have already met with the Kent County Road Commission, but we need to have a few more of these in-house meetings to gather final comments for them. I don't think there's any real big surprises there. I think you're going to see a couple of recommendations that are pretty minor, but you know, at the entrance to 4 Mile and Northbridge, we're going to need to see a right turn lane. There's too many vehicles. They're going to be making that movement to then bog down what would be the straight across the road movement. We're going to have 2 separate lanes there. Pretty basic kind of an improvement. Probably going to need to see a decel lane on 4 Mile Road for the private entrance off 4 Mile Road. Again, that makes sense if you got 55-mile-an-hour vehicles coming in from the west. They're going to want to come in the first driveway they can get to, and want to get in a safe place to slow down. And then at Bristol and 4 Mile, we've also got some concerns, or the county's got some concerns that we can certainly understand, because the right turn lane there is very short. That was something that was cobbled together about 5 years ago. Best fit, best we could do. I think it was a public works project that we did here. It wasn't a formal design or a big project. But that's not going to be enough to handle the load from the apartments of the northbound traffic on Bristol turning right. So those are the pretty easy things to address. The one big elephant in the room is 4 Mile and Alpine. I think every technical person that's looked at this has said, oh boy, 4 Mile and Alpine, you know, because we've done everything that we can do out there. It's been widened as much as it can be widened without buying a business, making some significant cuts in the commercial area that's there. So I think what we're going to have to look at, and we'll give you some details moving forward, I think some charts and graphs, is that the level of service there is going to drop. And for the critical movements, it's already at kind of an F, which is a letter grade that's similar to the scores that our kids would get in school. It's an F, it'll be a worse F. You know, it's just going to get a little bit worse. There's really no way around that. When you add a lot more trips, it just gets worse. The delay is going to be longer. So that's one that we just want to be honest with you up front on, and we'll share some details, I think, as we move forward, because we want to be honest with that. If this moves forward tonight, we would recommend that the developer put together a preliminary utility plan that can be submitted to Grand Rapids so that we can review the layouts for the water and sewer. I think that's a critical part, and it's of us being kind of honest about maybe deficiencies in the plan. These folks are all from out of town. We want to make sure that we get them acclimated with the processes and the plans that we have here with Grand Rapids. I think a lot of the sewer and water layout will change and be adjusted, and we don't want to get them all the way to final plan and have to come back and do that. So I think doing that in the interim, if this moves forward tonight, is a very good idea and a good, honest way to move forward. So that's kind of a high-level technical review.
Scott, thank you very much. Commissioners, again, Scott has addressed the high level as he put it. And do you have any questions of him at this point in time? Okay, there being none, we'll turn the floor over to Tricia Anderson, our planning director.
Okay. Let me share my screen here. I've got a little presentation. Okay. And let's go to the beginning. Okay. I'm gonna move over here so I can take off my mask and still be within 6 feet of Scott. So my name is Tricia Anderson. I'm the planning director here at the City of Walker, and this has been one of the biggest projects that I've ever had a chance to work on, being, fairly fresh in my career as a planner. So this was a really good exercise for me in just being able to review all the key points that surrounds this project. So a lot of pretty much we've touched on almost everything that I had planned to talk about, but I just wanted to kind of fill in a few blanks. So tonight we are here to consider the rezone of that. You can see that little tiny parcel up in the northwest corner of the project area. That parcel is currently zoned agricultural, and the developer wishes to incorporate that piece into the overall larger parcel as part of the project. And the other request is for the preliminary area site plan. So for the broad planned unit development. So we've had, oops, I'm going to skip over this because we've pretty much gone through all that. And before I get into the history of this parcel, which I had the pleasure of doing a lot of digging to find out and learn a lot about this parcel, I just wanted to kind of go through the process because I'm hearing a lot of like what some people are worried that like Haley was worried that she might not get another chance to have her voice heard in this process. And so I just wanted to put it out there that this is the second step, because actually the first step is for us to send out public hearing notices. So everybody within 300 feet of the subject parcels would have received a little green postcard that indicates the day and time of the meeting, what the topic will be, and what they are requesting from the Planning Commission. So this is required by law, and we also put a notice in the paper that indicates the same exact thing. So that's the first step. The second step And a lot of times developers will try to do this concurrently, but they are requesting a rezone and a PASP. So PASP, like I mentioned, is the overall PUD plan or planned unit development plan. And if you're not familiar with what a planned unit development is, it's kind of like its own little zoning district. And there's densities and there's building types and there's land uses and there's setbacks, and it's all specific to this particular zoning district or PUD. And so during the PASP process, we iron out the really broad details. You probably heard Scott mention that he's not really getting into stormwater management at this point in time. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with traffic and offsite improvements and deciding exactly what has to be done in order to manage increased traffic as a result of this development. So that stuff gets handled later on down the line. The rezone requires the planning commission to provide a recommendation to the city commission. And then the city commission has the final authority on approving the rezone. The planning commission sees the PASP and they don't have to provide a recommendation to the city commission. So they do their review, and tonight I've made a recommendation for the planning commission to consider. But they'll vote tonight on whether or not they'll approve the PASP with conditions or without conditions or deny it. And they also have the choice of tabling this item if they collectively feel that there's not enough information to make a sound decision. Did you get that? Wood TV has you covered. So it's okay. So another step in the process, if the PASP is approved at the planning commission, you've heard some mention about this development agreement. So the developer will have to enter into an agreement with the city that basically outlines all of his responsibilities in terms of cost sharing and easements that need to be obtained and recorded, and also any obligations to build roads and secure right-of-ways and things like that. So that's something that we'd like to get drafted. If it gets approved tonight, we'd like to get that drafted and get working on that before the developer applies for the FASP, which is the final area site plan. And during that time, I've heard some people talk about landscaping and whether or not a row of trees can be maybe spaced out a little bit more. The overall plan shows sort of like a row. The final area site plan is the time where we will review things in a lot more detail. So Scott will be looking at stormwater management. He'll be taking into account all of the calculations and volumes and ensuring that stormwater stays on the property. Mark mentioned that the ponds will be irrigated, and they'll have like what's the word I'm thinking of? Fountain. Yes, a fountain. Somebody else mentioned fencing. Will a fence that's existing, will that be maintained or will that be removed? We're also going to ask them to provide some detailed floor plans. And we're going to want to see the materials that they're using for the buildings. We'll also ask for parking calculations that coincide with the city's requirements per the ordinance. So these are all details that we haven't got to yet, but they're definitely details that we're going to be reviewing before any construction equipment hits the ground, if there's an approval. Another step in the process is the lot combination, and that one's pretty simple, where the developer goes to the assessing department, fills out a lot combination form, and then that one piece that he's requesting to rezone gets incorporated into the larger project parcel. And then you've probably also heard of this Northridge Drive precise plat. Scott mentioned that it has to be amended. Does that mean that the location of it generally is going to change? No. And a lot of you are probably thinking, what the heck is a precise plat? I had that same question myself when I first started working for the city of Walker, because I had never heard of a precise plat. But it's very interesting, and it's a very useful tool in ensuring that a road gets built. So it's in the ordinance that a road has to be built when a developer comes in and says, I would like to develop this parcel. They're on the hook for ensuring that this road in the location that the city has prescribed builds it, and also pays for the cost to build that road. So even after that, the Northridge precise plat amendment, and all the amendment is having the planning commission review and make a recommendation to the city commission, an amendment to the actual precise plat ordinance. And the exhibit is what is really going to be amended. And it shows exactly where that Northridge Drive will line up. And the developer is, they're having their engineers verify exactly where that alignment is, because we want it to be aligned directly with Bristol and the existing Northridge on the west side of Bristol. So, you know, if this gets approved, there's going to be even more steps before any building permits could get issued, because there's just a lot of details. This is a big project. So let me go back to the history of the property. Kim mentioned quite a bit, and I've done all this research just with, you know, looking at the your website and old files that the city's had, and master plan files. So I'm sure I'm missing some major milestones for your business, but in terms of the land itself and, you know, the land uses that could have gone there or have been there, this is just a brief history. So this golf course opened in 1973. So that was a long time ago. I don't even know if we have the actual records from way back then. 1983, the country club expanded and they created their event center. So that's when they began having parties and weddings and things like that. Then they closed their golf course in 2003 because they received an offer kind of just like what's happening right now. And you've heard of the mention of this Pulte plan. Well, this was another development that was proposed and actually approved by the city of Walker. And my picture here is really tiny, but I included it in my packet. But that plan was very dense. And at that time, that's when the Planning Commission approved the rezone to RPUD2, which is what the existing land, the zoning of the land is right now. So RPUD2 is high density residential. And this is, it was approved, but it never came to fruition. And I think they would have had a really hard time mitigating all the wetlands that they would be impacting, because the plan was to pretty much use every square inch of this property. And then in 2006, they received another offer because the Pulte plan never came to fruition. And this is when a Cabela's was potentially looking at the site. So at that time, 2007, the city decided to update their master plan and they created this sub area 3B, which is what was previously in the master plan. It spoke to a lot of uses like commercial, office, mixed residential. So there were a lot of ideas, I think, when there was the potential for a large retailer to be occupying that site. And then 2008, the golf course reopens because they must be like, well, nobody's developing the property and we can't get a a decent developer in here, so let's let people golf. And then fast forward to 2020, we've updated our master plan, and right before it was adopted, Mark came to the planning commission meeting. It was a joint planning commission and city commission meeting where we talked about the changes that we would be proposing to the 2020 master plan. And so then fast forward to now where you have an actual proposal for a multifamily development. So a lot of the questions that I've been getting, especially from the folks from the English Hills condos, I'm sorry, the English Ridge condos. I received a letter from them, from the board of directors from the English Ridge Condominium Association. And so I did some emailing with Lou Van Leer. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. And it sounds like collectively the members of that association were concerned about the items that were in the 2020 master plan, and they attended this community engagement event and had a lot of input. And the master plan reflects a lot of elements that they felt were important. And so what I did in my staff report is I just made a table that shows, okay, here's what the 2020 master plan is calling for. And here's what this proposed development is offering. And whether or not it met some of those items from the master plan. So there's a couple different things within the master plan that we're looking at. And specifically, it's the future land use and the community character designation. So for this particular property, that designation is residential growth, 2 to 4 units per acre. When you look at the proposed PASP, does it meet the general characteristics, land use, streets, building, and site design? And my answer to that is yes, it generally does meet those recommendations. Another big piece of our master plan was the significant undeveloped lots. And this is where we took all the all the large undeveloped lots that could potentially be developed for single family, multifamily, depending on what area it is, or industrial or commercial development. And we've already come up with a predetermined density for that piece of property. And for this one, the maximum density using a cluster design is 556 units. The proposed development comes in underneath that at 552 units, and the proposed density is 3.8 units per acre. So 3.8 units fits within the 2 to 4 units per acre per the community character designation. And there was also some specific recommendations for the English Hills site, which I mentioned, that the English Ridge Condo Association had some concerns about. So in terms of land use, preservation of natural features, pedestrian pathways, and density, the proposed PASP generally meets these recommendations. There were some there was some question about senior housing, single family, owner occupied units, single detached and attached condominium units, and small scale retail that's mentioned in the master plan. And so I had a conversation with Lou to kind of explain what the difference is between the recommendations in the master plan and what the what requirements we have. So the master plan is a guide and there's recommendations. They're not requirements. So it would be really hard for a developer to come in and say, here's my proposal. And if we can't check the boxes of senior housing and owner occupied condominiums, then we have to disapprove the proposal. That would be very hard to do because like Mark mentioned earlier, you know, there's the property owner has the right to sell the property, and a developer has the right to develop it in a manner that's consistent with our comprehensive plan and the zoning that's in place. And so I believe that the proposed PASP generally aligns with those elements. Another part of the master plan that we've looked at is new road connections. So Northridge Drive and the precise plat specifically. So Northridge is proposed to be constructed as public. It's proposed to align with the Northridge Bristol intersection per the precise plat ordinance and connect to 4 Mile and Cordis intersection. So that's there. There's also a network of private streets within the development. And I'm not going to go into too much detail with utilities because that's kind of Scott's bailiwick. But I just wanted to reiterate that the Kingsbury lift station and the 4 Mile water tank are two big pieces to what we will include in the development agreement to ensure costs are taken care of in being able to utilize those public utilities. Scott talked a lot about streets and traffic, and I just wanted to mention a couple different things that hasn't been mentioned yet. And that would be the entrance from where it's currently called the the English Hills Access Drive. So that currently is private. If this development is approved, that road will become public and it will be that extension of Northridge Drive. And so English Ridge is a road that comes off, just gonna put it up here. It comes off that portion of, of that road. So, and it's on the subject parcel. So there's currently a development, there's currently a cross access and private road maintenance agreement in place to cover the maintenance of both those pieces. But once Northridge becomes public, then the easement will only be over the Northridge Drive portion. And so the developer and the condo associations will need to work together to revise that agreement or come up with a whole new agreement, get it recorded and provide a copy to the city. The other thing I wanted to mention is, and I already touched on it just a little bit, but all the streets within this proposed development are planned as private. And the only public drive is Northridge. Another thing that you've heard mentioned quite a bit is this open space. So in doing the calculation of the ratio between developed areas and built areas and areas that are pervious or don't allow infiltration of stormwater into the ground. The ratio of that and the ratio of areas that do allow stormwater infiltration, the number you get here is 76%. And I heard somebody say you look at it and it doesn't really look like 76%, but apparently if the calculations are accurate, that's what it is. And so with that open space, you know, the reason that the open spaces, that so much of it is available is because the design of this development and the layout is such that the buildings are clustered together. The buildings and the roads and the parking areas and the amenities are all kind of clustered together, leaving all those, you know, natural features alone. So that allows for wetland preservation, and it also allows for keeping a lot of trees, tree preservation, and overall preservation of natural features, topography. And so I think in this development, it's pretty important to not have to impact a lot of those wetlands, because some of them are regulated, and the ones that are regulated, the developer has to work with Eagle to mitigate those impacts. And that's something that will get reviewed in more depth down the line by Scott during the FASP process. And then I think that's all I had to cover. I just wanted to speak to a couple comments from the public hearing. Renee mentioned that the developer is requesting higher density zoning. And I just wanted to reiterate that the zoning is already there, RPUD2, which is high density residential. That zoning was approved in 2004. So that's already there. The rezone is just for that one little parcel that's zoned agricultural that they want to incorporate into the overall larger parcel. Kim talked about geese. I don't have any planning knowledge that can really speak to the geese issue, but all I can say is that where there's wetlands and cattails, there's usually geese. But some of them are a nuisance and some of them are, you know, just whatever. Kathleen, I wanted to mention that I noticed the frogs too. And I think you're still going to be able to hear the frogs with the amount of, yeah, well, detention ponds, but there's a lot of wetlands that they don't want to touch because it's going to cost a lot more money. And so I think that you're still going to be able to hear the frogs. We talked about the consistency with the master plan. I think I spoke to the English Ridge condos concerns. Joe mentioned on how will the developer control pollution, construction, traffic, and dust. He also mentioned this hypothetical extension to Bristol, but I just wanted to reiterate that that is not hypothetical and that is planned. And it will happen per this ordinance. And then, you know, also, I totally hear the comments about wildlife. I have a development happening in my backyard currently. Well, it's a sand pit now, but it's going to be developed. And the deer are inching, you know, closer and closer because they're cutting down lots of trees. And so I get that. And that's, you know, that's a thing, and it's a real concern. But you know, like I said, the way that this development is designed with the clustering and the preservation of a lot of those natural features, I think that's going to allow for a lot of the wildlife to still have a home. And so I have a recommendation on the rezone for the planning commission. And I'm recommending that the planning commission forward a favorable recommendation to the city commission for the rezone of the parcel located at 1474 Mile from agricultural to RPUD2, high density residential, subject to the following condition: that the applicant works with the city assessor to file an application for property combination with the parcel located at 1200 4 Mile Road Northwest. I also have a recommendation for the preliminary area site plan. It's recommended that the planning commission grant preliminary area site plan approval for the 552 unit multifamily development on the parcel located at 1200 4 Mile Road Northwest per the plan set revision dated March 3rd, 2021. Subject to the following conditions: the approval of the PASP is conditional upon the city commission's final approval of the rezone of 1470 4 Mile Road. A development agreement shall be drafted that outlines the developer's responsibility as it pertains to utility costs, municipal water payback, and lift station construction, right-of-way acquisition, easements, and off-site improvements prior to the approval of the final area site plan. The Northridge Drive precise plat shall be amended to reflect the location of the Northridge Drive as verified by the applicant, and as it geographically aligns with the intersection of Bristol Avenue and the Northridge Drive. The applicant shall work with the English Hills and English Ridge condominium associations to revise the easement agreement and furnish a recorded copy of said easement agreement to the city as a condition of final area site plan approval. The developer shall state on the PASP that passive recreational amenities such as trails are planned for private use only. And last, the applicant shall address all the items outlined in the city engineer's report dated 3/18/2021. And that is my presentation.
Thank you, Tricia. Commissioners, any questions or comments at this point? I would like to beforehand give the developer, there were a couple of items that are still hanging out there, give him an opportunity to respond to them.
Thank you.
Take 1 minute, but I appreciate your time. Number one, we are real. We did our homework. We spent a lot of time, energy to design this right, so it's not imaginary. We know the concept this works. We agree with all Scott's comments, and we'll work with Scott on the utility plan, engineering, detention. And generally, we feel it works, and that's why we did our homework. We agree with everything besides the 4 Mile Bristol Road traffic. We know that's enough, but traffic report says it's marginally going to get worse. I could, in fact, argue that it'll get better because by having an apartment community where it's located, a lot of the employees will be coming from the west side. Could arguably say that traffic will get less because people won't be driving through to find an apartment outside of Walker. They'll actually be staying in Walker and on the west side of the property. So you could argue that potentially it actually generates less traffic. We have been very accommodating. As you said, we are committed to, we don't need to do this, but everything we've committed to is part of the package. So the number of units we're proposing, we're not building more. We're proposing 2-story buildings. We're proposing no vinyl. So all our commitments that we're proposing, if you do approve this, we are committed to, and some of these items will be addressed also in the development agreement, stating that we are in fact committed to these items. Just a side note about geese, you know, we'll have 12 on-site people on a daily basis, leasing and maintenance. We have properties in our area that we have used to. There are things you can do. If it's a nuance to our neighbors, it's probably a nuance to our residents, and there are certain things you can do that is environmentally friendly. Second of all, excuse me, but we're not avoiding the wetlands because it's expensive. Most of the wetlands are actually unregulated. We are green developers. We like preserving wildlife, and that's the reason we're doing it. It's not expensive to eliminate them. We could, but we're not. So on all our projects, the first thing we do is go flag wetlands. And that's the very first thing you did, and we're flagging the wetlands. I'm open for dialogue all the time. I've been very open to everyone. I'll give you my contact information for the one person that, didn't receive it. And I think that addresses everything. Someone mentioned a detention pond, again, conceptually, but we just got to work with the concept of it. But I think that's really it. And to date, and I pleaded with the public, and I think we've done a good job on this. I'm available all the time. So if there's questions, concerns, the homeowner association, I'm here, I'm available to meet. And again, what developer goes out of cell phone. So it shows the effort that we've gone to this stage to literally, there's not one request or comment that we have not really accommodated. We've made numerous changes at this point. And I hope that reflects upon a positive vote. So thank you.
Commissioners. Well, I've been impressed with several things. One, the owners showed up. It's nice to see someone come that owns the land, owned it for a long time. The developer obviously does homework and followed through very well. And the public, you've done a great job. I think every one of you talked and said you were nervous and no more nervous than I am. And I was impressed. And I noticed most of your comments, you had a few things you wanted fixed, but most of them were complimentary, which I thought was very appropriate. So this sounds pretty good to me.
Thank you, Joe.
I'll make some quick comments. I appreciate everyone's time tonight. It was great to hear from the residents. I appreciate hearing from the developer and the owner. I think we're in a good place as far as the preliminary area site plan goes, and I think that the biggest thing is going to be in the details, the things that we have to work out at the final area site plan level. And I look forward to working with Scott here to get some of those details ironed out and make sure that we're getting this moved forward in a way that makes sure that we're limiting the impacts on the existing residents and being sensitive to all of the impacts of a major development like this.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll echo Joe and Steve without going into everything they said. I like the open areas, and the developer could have taken this whole development, put 4 units per acre, and but it all up right to the lot lines. That's really what they could have done. So to have that buffer, do I like apartments? If I had my choice, Cabela's would be there, but that's gone. So I think you guys did a good job, and thanks to the neighbors for showing up, and you guys did a good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Tyler. Anybody else?
Gary, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
To Mark, is this your team that's behind you? It might be worthwhile to introduce them if they are.
He's our broker.
Okay.
He's with Bradley Company, Kevin, and this is one of my partners. But yeah, he's my partner, Ryan Hoffman from Dublin Group.
Okay, I guess for the next time around, if you could bring some of your technical folks in, I know they're from out of town, but we'll really start to get into the detail. And
yeah,
it's just nice to put a face with it.
Nothing came up, but Jesse, from Wolverine, was on the call.
Okay.
But nothing came up, so
Good.
But thank you. And we're not all local. One of my partners is Scott Soros, said he is a local from Grand Rapids, so we have roots here.
Okay. Pat, Tom, Mark, Scott, Jason, any additional comments?
Hey, Terry, this is, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, Tom Bile here, and I kind of echo Tyler's comments. There's a surprise. It'd be nice if it was some single-family residential in there, but I think that ship has sailed, and I believe they've done a good job in addressing all, if not most of the concerns that are out there. So I like the looks of the buildings, so I'm okay with it.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, Terry, this is Pat. I hate to see a golf course go. We're losing too many of them, but I like the idea that they've saved a lot of the land. I mean, 75%, that's really good. I would like to have seen some more standalone condos on the northern side, just because I think the population is getting older, and I think the older population likes those more so than the multi-units, but we'll see, I guess. And I like that they're saving a lot of trees, you know, and putting up trees around the existing neighbors. So that's really good, because I'm going to have that same issue with the golf courses leaving me behind me soon. So that's it.
Thanks, Pat. Scott?
I'll just echo what Tyler, Steve, and Joe, and others have said. I think it's a good project. They've addressed all the concerns of the surrounding neighbors and
Thank you.
I'll say it's the same as everybody else. I don't want to use the word need, but I feel there's going to be a more high demand for this type of
Thank you, Mark.
I just have any new comments. I appreciate all the residents that came out and hear your opinion. I think developers did a good job. They could have with the working with the space and preserving it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, I tend to echo the comments that have been offered here. I think it's been pointed out, and some of the points have been raised by the neighbors, by staff, that there's some detail that needs to be worked out. And as Tricia described the process, one part of it is that, what is that? Was that 2.5 or 3 acres along?
Say that again?
The size of the property that's up for rezone.
A little over 3.
A little over 3 acres that's fronts on 4 Mile. So with the development plan, it does not show any development there as far as any building locations, parking. So as we go from preliminary site plan to final site plan, there'll be some fine tuning of the detail. And so this will come back for review. So you have another opportunity to take a look at it as it gets in that more final form. And but again, I agree with my fellow commissioners, and I feel that the recommendation that's been forwarded to us by the planning director is a reasonable way to approach it. With that, we're probably at a point of considering taking action this evening.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. Case number 21-002, English Hills Multifamily Development, PSP, 1200 4 Mile Road Northwest, and rezone of 1470 4 Mile Road Northwest. Rezone request. I make a motion to forward a recommendation to the City Commission to approve the rezone of the parcel located at 1474 Mile Road Northwest from AA Agricultural to RPUD2 High Density Residential, subject to the following condition. The applicant must work with the city assessor to file an application for property combination with the parcel located at 1200 4 Mile Road. Preliminary site plan review. I make a motion to approve the PSP approval for the 552 unit multifamily development on the parcel located at 1200 4 Mile Road Northwest for the plan set revision dated 3/3/2021, subject to the following conditions and findings. The approval of the PSP is conditional upon the City Commission's first final approval of the rezone of 1474 Mile Road Northwest. A development agreement shall be drafted that outlines the developer's responsibilities as it pertains to utility costs, municipal water payback and lift station construction, right-of-way acquisition, easements, and off-site road improvements prior to the approval of the final site plan. The Northridge Drive precise plat shall be amended to reflect the locations of Northridge Drive as verified by the applicant and is geographical aligns with the intersection of Bristol Avenue and Northridge Drive. The applicant shall work with the English Hills and English Ridge Condominium Association to revise the easement agreement and furnish a recorded copy of said easement agreement to the city as a condition of final area site plan approval. The developer shall clarify whether some of the passive recreational amenities are planned for private use or public use. And the applicant shall address all items outlined in the city engineer's report dated 3/18/2021. Findings of fact, the proposed development does conform to the city's general development plan. The proposed development does conform to the intent and to all regulations and standards of the article of this chapter as applicable. The proposed development will be adequately served by public facilities and services such as highways, streets, police and fire protection, drainage courses, water and sanitary sewer facilities, refuse disposal, or that the persons or agencies responsible for the proposed development will be able to provide them in a manner acceptable to the planning commission, any such facilities and services. The common open space, any other common properties, individual properties, and all other elements of the PUD are so planned that they will achieve a unified open and recreation area system with open space and all other elements in an appropriate locations excuse me for a second. Wow.
It's a filibuster.
Oh, where was I? The location of the proposed uses, layouts of the site, and in relation to streets given access to it will be such the traffic to, from, and within the site and assembly of persons in connection therewith will not be hazardous or inconvenient to this project or the surrounding area. In applying this standard, the planning commission shall consider, among other things, convenient routes for pedestrian traffic, particularly of children, relationship of the proposed project to main thoroughfares and street intersections, and the general character and intensity of the existing and potential development of the surrounding area. The mix of housing unit types and densities and the mix of residential and non-residentials will be acceptable in terms of convenience, privacy, compatibility, and similar measures. The planning commission shall determine that noise, odor, light, or other external effects from any source whatsoever, which is connected with the proposed use, will not adversely affect adjacent and neighboring lands or uses. Streets do follow topography, are properly spaced, and are located and aligned in accordance with the intended function of each street. The property will have adequate access to public streets. The plans do provide for logical extension of public streets and shall provide suitable street connections to adjacent parcels where applicable. Major pedestrian circulations will be provided for within the site and will interconnect all residential areas, community areas, and commercial and other services where available. This pedestrian system will provide a logical extension of the pedestrian ways for outside of the site and will provide pedestrians connections to the edge of the site where appropriate. Where a project is proposed for construction in phases, the planning and designing will be such that upon completion, each phase shall be capable of standing on its own in terms of the presence of services, facilities, and open spaces, and will contain the necessary components to ensure protection of natural resources and the health, safety, and welfare of the users of the planned unit development and the residents of the surrounding area.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there support? Support by Joe. We'll take this to vote. Roll call vote, please. Patricia?
Terry,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Tom,
He says yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Okay, motion carried.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, before we leave the issue, I would like to apologize to the neighbor on 18. I put more than my fair share of golf balls in your.
I was hitting the wrong button.
All right. Thank you very much for coming this evening. If you have any questions, developer provided his contact information, and Tricia and Scott will continue to be the main points of information from the city. Thank you again for coming this evening and attending online.
Thank you.
Any other business?
no, we don't have a planning commission meeting on the 7th of April. But we will be meeting on the 14th for Waterford Village.
Okay.
I'm having foot surgery on Friday and I'll be out the whole next week.
Hope you speedy recovery.
Thanks.
Do we have a motion? Motion supported with the ayes.
Hey, Pat, if they had an informational meeting for your neighbors,
No, nothing
Do you have
yet.
any more ice cream bars?
I keep waiting to hear something, getting something in my mail but nothing.
okay, well, I don't really, not too excited about a meeting without a meeting with those neighbors.
Exactly.